I will sleep at ease for the first time in 11 years.
It feels good.
No H in Nicholas.
Thank you, Joe.
Do any of you know how to turn off automatic audio adjustment on a Mac?
Honestly, Andy, it's sounding fine now. I wouldn't stress it too much.
Wait,
You got it.
Is it not in the Skype settings?
No, there's one in the
Oh,
Skype
I
settings.
already got that, but for some reason I
or
can't find it on my actual Mac.
OS 10 was then also doing something on its end, but it's better now. As long as the noise level is consistent, I can remove it. It was just I don't like when it's coming in and out because then there's not much I can do about it.
So don't scream, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we're doing okay right now. I'll let you know.
Okay, cool.
Do scream is what he said.
How are all of the BGH fans gonna be able to hear my patented singing voice?
Yeah, patented.
That is
you went to the
that
patent
is what
office for that, or-
that is what you're known for.
Waiting. Patent pending.
Yeah. TM.
We
What's
got
the
our new
difference between a TM and an R?
we got our new live stream look going right now. Well, we will as soon as I hit publish here.
So wait, we're not live yet?
I'll just take your word for it.
No, we're about to be live.
All right, fat fucks, you fat fucks.
Fuck it.
Fat fuckers.
We'll do it live.
Weight loss. Fat fucks.
Wow, is this like your morning? Is this what you do in the morning?
Oh God. Andy, I think you missed that particular Slack dust up.
Oh yeah, I basically am not on Slack unless I'm telling Joe that we posted something.
It's a good strategy, actually.
People were triggered.
There's
There's lots of
So
triggering
much.
going on.
So much trigger. Not the good kind either.
Oh, here, wait, Eric. I think I have an idea.
Oh yeah. I don't know what your plan is, but anytime you pull out the Mac headphones, I feel like
Stand by.
got this resolved.
Whatever
Andy,
you just no whatever you just did is worse, and now I'm hearing. Wait. Okay.
Wait, Andy, I don't mean this to be a dick. Do you have the microphone facing the right way?
He does.
Yeah, you're seeing the back of it on the camera, aren't you?
Well, no, mine is the exact same, but I face the controls.
You face it the other way.
Wait a minute.
Oh wait, no,
Joe,
I
are
have
you
those controls in the back.
Joe, yeah,
does
it's
this
in the
sound?
back, Joe. The mute button should be facing you, basically, so you can see it.
Joe,
I was
Joe, is there a meteorite in your yard.
I was really hoping to find out that Joe's had his mic backwards for 12 years.
I mean, I've only had this mic for like 5 years.
I mean, he comes from a family that flushes his cereal. What do you want from him?
No, the wife is firmly against me on this one.
Nice.
But we did
Well,
flush fondue the other day.
Fondue.
Like that can't be.
That's got to be worse.
Yeah.
How's it worse? What's the consistency of your stool, John?
It's
Are you shitting water? Because if you have a-
Sometimes
Joe.
I will flush anything that is like softer than stool. That's my.
Are you testing it like with your finger? Like, are you testing your stool first and foremost to understand the consistency, and then testing everything else?
I don't have to test my stool, John. I feel it coming out of me. I know what's happening.
Okay.
So,
So I'm not going to read that email because ultimately the only reason I thought about reading it is because I feel bad for not reading that dude's email. But placating this one dude versus stepping awkwardly into this whole conversation that we don't really have strong thoughts on. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
yeah.
I think it would be different if we actually all read up on like what he's talking about. Like,
Also,
I don't think
it's-
any of us really know what's going on.
Also, it's a horror podcast.
I'll pretend enough, Andy. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'll
You
mansplain
are
the shit
the
out of it.
richest and whitest of us, so that makes sense.
Exactly. I will tell you what I think about it.
Andy,
all right, stand by. I'll be right
Andy,
back.
can you
Yeah.
mute again?
Muting right now.
Okay, unmute.
It's better than it was.
Okay, that's just my normal. My mixer, I get static from my mixer that isn't actually getting recorded. That sometimes I'm not exactly sure what I'm hearing, but we're good.
Gotcha. I'm gonna step back in with it then.
We are live right now, BT Dubs.
Yeah, just as a heads up, I'm home alone with my children, and there's basically like 100% chance I'm gonna freak out thinking one of them is like creeping around on me or later.
Cray
So-
open.
Cray open, yeah.
You left your son home alone. And you
No-
just want to check on him.
Noted Cray opers. John's children.
Well, it's more like if one of them like has a quote unquote nightmare, which I often just think they're faking when they say that.
Do you have to check if you need to flush
I
their
just
stool?
assume they're faking.
Mia pulls that shit all the time, and I'm probably a monster because she probably is not faking it half the time, and I'm like, no, you didn't. You're not scared of the dark. You've slept in the dark your entire life. Today you decide you're scared of the dark? No.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fuck back
look
in.
at how well you turned out.
Yeah.
Joe, they give me the I'm afraid of the dark every day before
Yeah.
bed, and I just look at them and I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
See ya. So good times.
We
Do you want a
definitely.
reason to be afraid of the
Sorry,
dark?
Yeah.
sorry guys. I'm trying to just grab this link quick to throw it into Slack. We definitely had a little weird, little like afraid of the dark thing, but then it seems like we moved past it.
Yeah, I mean it's all just nonsense.
Do any of you boys use
I mean I
sleep
sleep with
masks?
all the light. I sleep with all the lights on, just to be clear.
All the lights
What was any?
Do any of you
Sleep
use like
mask?
sleeping masks? Yeah.
No,
Just
No?
a CPAP mask.
I do.
That's more for my mouth.
We
and my
we went
eyes.
over this. Joe called me a mental patient because I use a sleeping mask and earplugs. Like I'm basically sleeping in a total sensory deprivation chamber every night.
You
Oh,
are
man.
just asking to be murdered.
The
Yeah, I-
girlfriend has
I'd-
like earmuffs. She has a whole thing. It's like earmuffs and a sleeping mask. It's like all one piece that she wears.
That terrifies. What if there's a fire alarm?
yes, that's what I'm.
Well, the last time we had a fire alarm in here, I slept through it. She woke up, turned it off, and had to wake me up.
Oh god, you guys are gonna burn your sleep. Next gathering, Eric, I'm gonna stab you in your sleep just to prove a point.
Jesus.
I think I'm pretty sure I locked my door.
God, I can pick that.
I
Tell
can
me
go
about
through
picking it.
that.
Yeah, most doors in those houses are like those just little click ones. You just gotta push something in there. I'll get to you.
So
I'll
to be
get
to be
you.
Whoa.
clear, I'm the mental patient in this situation. You're gonna break down my door and murder me to prove a point.
Oh my god.
I will
I mean,
look.
if Joe can't pick it, it only takes like 5 beers for him to get me ornery enough to go like charge through it, Kool-Aid Man style.
I'll
Hell yeah.
purposely look for Airbnb with locks to my liking.
I thought we were all going to stay in the mental ward and unsane. That would be my ideal sleeping situation.
Yeah, bedrooms, whatever. What kind of locks you got on those doors?
He's whining. What does he want?
Can we install extra?
Is he okay?
So Eric, are we gonna do a show here or? What's...
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to make sure my dog
thinking?
isn't gonna like vomit on the floor right now.
All right.
John's afraid of the dark and wants to go hang out with his kids, so you gotta hurry.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, does Laura always sit back there?
She's definitely monitoring the show tonight.
Did Eric like show her the emails? Is that what she's monitoring?
Oh, they're fighting again. So,
I
it's my
hate it when
dog,
mom and
asshole.
dad fight.
Not me. I enjoy it.
You sick fuck.
It's the highlight of my week.
I mean, honestly, like to shake things up, someone from this crew needs to get divorced. Like,
It's dark, Joe. It's dark.
come on. I'd love another bachelor party.
Upside, you're right. Positive. I look on the positives here.
Is a divorce bachelor party crazier than a normal bachelor
Oh.
party?
Yeah, like what do they call that when you have like a party when you're getting divorced?
Push
I
party.
don't know. Does it have a name?
Push party.
No, push parties or push presents. The baby.
I know. I'm kidding.
I'm
I
gonna
think
look
it's
this up.
a bukkake. I think is what you're thinking of.
Oh no.
No,
Andy.
Too far. Too far.
Andy. Yeah. Come
That's
on.
how I always celebrate divorces.
It's ancient
little
ancient tradition.
You guys.
Sorry, my dog's just having a freak out
Disgusting.
right now, and I'm trying to figure out what he's doing so he doesn't start freaking out when we start the show.
Divorce parties, also known as divorce ceremony. I
Is
thought it-
Leslie gonna find your search history and be like, "What the fuck"?
Leslie, honestly, if she found that, she'd be like, "Fucking try, buddy. All right."
She'd be like, she would show you hers.
It would be, yeah, it'd pretty much be that episode of Seinfeld where George asks for a prenup.
yeah.
Yeah.
She would show you hers, and it would be how to get away with murdering your husband while he's sleeping.
She reminds me almost
Would you
daily
use
that I have no idea like what our bank account info is or like any of our bills.
All right, sorry.
There
Just
you
give
go.
me
Do you
one.
get an
give me one more
allowance
second.
too?
I do actually.
Yeah, I definitely need to start doing that.
Oh, it's honestly not, while we're waiting, like I took care of our finances for probably like 10 years or maybe like 8. And finally I said like, all right, fine, you do it. Because Leslie had been asking. And within 3 years, we went from having like maybe 800 in the bank to being able to buy a house. So
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go.
Way to go.
The house cost $805.
but the allowance is like a huge one because like I get paid twice a month, and from that paycheck we each get like a certain amount of money, and like that's our, if I want to buy coffee, if I want to go out for drinks, like that's yours. So we know like every month like this is what we're going to spend and nothing more.
Is your line item Miller's Pub?
Well, that's the thing. Like when we went on this, like I had to stop going there like 3 times a week, and like that's probably what allowed us to actually buy a house.
Buy a house.
Yeah. John, can you do that for me?
Yeah, give me access to your bank accounts, and I'll let you know.
Sure, sounds great.
I'll get back to you.
So you take Bitcoin, right?
So what point do we call this and just John hosts and we?
What is he doing?
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think I got time to get some hot water here?
Yeah, you're good.
really
do
good
it.
time to like go out and get a sandwich or something.
Yeah, you do what you like. Should we just say we're starting the show at 8:30 now? Like, is that easier?
We need to.
Ay, ay, ay.
Oh, I thought he had to actually like heat the water. What a fancy lad.
Oh, the hot shot?
We've got an electric kettle. It's not that fast though.
We have a hot shot in our apartment. It's pretty nice. First time I've ever had one. Would recommend.
What's a hot shot?
It's like that little like extra faucet that you just like
Oh,
shoot out hot water.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we use it a lot. So
I don't have running water, so
It's Indiana.
yeah, exactly.
it's like one of the well situations from the movie.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I got an outhouse out back.
Jesus Christ, is Eric just like fucking tidying up the house now?
I like that he's just pretending like we're just not here. That's actually my favorite part.
We're still alive too, aren't we? This is the best part.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes.
If anyone wants to like know how much I hate Eric, you just look at my eyes on
Yeah.
the live stream right now.
What is this? I'm trying to see the photos that he's got there in the background. Is that? Oh, there's one holding a baby. I thought it was just them like folding their arms or something.
We gotta talk about this clock that he's got.
Doing their Beastie Boys rapper pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that clock.
Oh.
I can see
He's
just
not.
how
No,
late-
no.
The
Total
suspense is killing me.
fake
Alright.
out. Fake
Sorry-
out on the
sorry, guys.
headset. Are you serious, Eric? I just want to check if you're serious right now. Is this for real?
Are you fucking serious?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
fucking serious.
He 100% is, and
You
we're all
told us
behind.
to sign on at 8:30.
Hey, I'm
motherfucker.
gonna be a minute. I'll be back later.
Yeah.
All right, later, man. Let's go.
Jesus Christ, dude.
All right. You know what, John?
I don't want to hear it, Eric. I'm serious. Let's start.
We
the
don't
show.
have any fan mail. All right, it'll be fine.
God.
Well, we have one. You're just too scared to read it.
All right, my dog is done. All right, we're recording. I'm ready.
Just put it outside. And let it go. Let it go.
It came from the wild. It goes back to the wild.
Whenever you guys want to mute, we're ready to go.
Welcome to Bloody Good Horror.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Color Out... Oh, God damn it. I forgot it. What's it called? Color Out of Time? Color Out of
Space here.
Space.
I don't know if that was a bit you were doing.
To be it actually wasn't.
Trying to enrage me further.
To be fair, that's too many words for a title. I'm just going to say it. Anyway, Color Out of Space. This is an adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft book. It's starring, who else would you cast in a Lovecraft movie? Nicolas Cage. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. But first up, let's introduce the crew. Joining us from Chicago, Illinois. He drinks beer. Bow, bow, bow. Please welcome Joe to the show.
Oh, hey everybody, how we doing tonight? Great, 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 really excited.
Next up from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello.
Next up from Manhattan, New York City. He's a big dumb animal, folks. Please welcome John Schnarrs to the show.
Oh, Eric.
What's the man in Manhattan?
Oh, that's good. I never thought of that.
There you go. Thank you,
John, what brand of undershirt is that you're wearing? What
That's a Hanes. It's just, you know,
Classy,
Yeah.
classy undershirts.
tagless. You got the tagless situation in the back. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Next up on the show, special guest tonight. It's been a while since he's been on the show. He's the managing editor of BloodyGoodHorror.com. Please welcome Andy to the show.
Hello, boys and ghouls.
Andy,
Greetings and felicitations, children of technology.
Andy, it should be noted that we had you see Underwater last week and then booted you for Adam, for which I'd like to apologize.
Hey, no, it's fine. I like to keep it my standard record to see all of the terrible like early winter movies or any kind of like big budget blockbuster movie, and occasionally like an H.P. Lovecraft movie. That's my
Listen.
like horror trend.
I like a good buried in January movie sometimes. You know what I mean? Because you go in with low expectations, and then Underwater happens, and you have fun. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean like, and I was sharing the theater with 4 geriatric folks that were basically going in and out of the theater. They were clearly just cruising up and down the hallway, just like dropping into whatever they wanted to watch, digging through plastic bags of like pork rinds.
Oh, nice.
So
Wait, now Andy, I have a question because you run a theater. Did you show Underwater at your theater? Like, could you not just like pop in and watch it? Like, is it not screening there?
unfortunately not. We couldn't make room for that one. Sorry.
No. Well, I don't know. I mean, listen, it got some good reviews here at BloodyGoodHorror.com. So
Hey, and I had a swell time with it.
Listen, it's not nearly as pretentious enough for Andy's theater, okay, John?
you can bring it back in like 25 years when it's a cult
Yeah,
classic. Or
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
When people
I mean,
are
like to your point, we were showing this very film, Color Out of Space, in the theater tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I would say this is exactly as pretentious as a movie as I would expect your theater to play, Andy.
Man, I
This
don't
and
think-
Reanimator.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, your theater had us. Like, I don't know what
Yeah.
that says there.
Bar's
but-
pretty
Yeah.
low.
Yeah, but it's
There-
Reanimator
there
like
are
25 years later, to John's point.
Right.
Also,
There
it
are
was
actually
midnight.
4 seats that we don't let people sit in. So
Also, it was midnight, and we paid to do it. So, you know.
Yeah, I guess it did.
I spilled a lot of beer in that theater too, just to be clear.
Yeah.
yeah, I
John-
think about if anybody like us asked to do that again at that theater, I probably wouldn't let them do it.
John,
You run a horror what?
what a great segue. You're spilling beer at the 10-year to tonight's beer pick. So, Joe, what are we drinking?
Beer guts.
Oh no, yeah, I forget to wait for Eric every week. Yeah, the color of our tears from outer space is it's a fun movie. Not even gonna begin to describe it, but we got a little family living in the woods. One of those happy little campers is a guy named, I don't know, what's the brother's name? I don't have it in front of me.
I think Jack or Benny.
Ben, yeah, he's the older one, and
Yeah, Jack's the younger one. Yeah.
Ben likes to hang out with one Tommy Chong and smoke a little of the old reefer like we do here in Illinois now that it's legal as of Jan 1.
Jan 1, is that what you call it now?
Yeah, he seems to be
It's the new
partial,
holiday for Joe. Double
partial
holiday.
to the smoking. I like the edibles, but you know we can come together on certain things. And in honor of that fine wacky tapacky, I picked a beer from the fine folks at Almanac Beer Company. They're all the way out in where are they out in? Their home office is based in San Francisco, but they're based out of Alameda, California, which I'm sure is a place. But anyway, the beer I picked from there is their Groove-tastic Brute IPA. So I've obviously done a lot of IPAs. I don't think I've ever done a Brute IPA. The style is actually new as of like the last couple years. So I did a little research on this and kind of figured out how they go about this process. But Brute, I think kind of refers to, I don't know if you ever had like a Brute champagne or sparkling wine. Very dry.
I have, Joe.
Kind of
had one.
I had one over the weekend, John.
Very tasty.
But so a lot of people describe this as a dry IPA, but how they go about doing that is actually during the brewing process. So you brew your beer, you put the yeast in. The yeast feeds off that sugar that gets created in the wort, or when you're boiling the beer, feeds off that sugar. That's what makes the alcohol. But there's still sugar left over, which is why a lot of IPAs have like a little bit of like a sweet flavor. This they actually use, and I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but it's amyglucosidase. It's an enzyme that actually goes in there, kind of kickstarts the sugars again, and the yeast feeds off that more and pretty much eats all of the sugar out of there. So there's really not any sweetness. Makes it super dry, but you still have that hop bite at the end. So it's become very popular because I think a lot of people are kind of getting sick of like traditional IPAs and like overly hopped and like a lot of like the sweetness you get with someone like the original West Coast IPAs. So it's super interesting. Like you still get those hops, but it has like a very dry finish to it. I know I keep saying dry, but I don't know how else to describe it. A lot of them even kind of will remind you of like a Pilsner with a little bit of the hoppiness towards the end. Not nearly as like overpowering as you get from like a traditional IPA. So I'm super into it. It's very good. This one I picked up from a local restaurant around here that does like a beer club. They did a collaboration. But I've had a few other Almanac beers and everything's been very, very good. This one comes in at 6.7% alcohol, so a little bit up there, but nothing crazy. Especially in the winter, you can shovel, go pick up the kids and down a few of these. But yeah, I wholeheartedly recommend all of their beers, and have a few of these after you've taken a little toke over the line, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about there, John?
Joe,
Don't get it.
never is
No
there
idea.
a better combination of things than those two things put together. It's like peanut butter and
Right.
chocolate. Just goes well together.
That's right.
All right.
So that's
Like
it.
Tommy Chung and colors.
That's the beer.
No, I don't think I gave the website, but I'm sure it's like almanacbrewing.com or something.
You don't have to Google it for them. They can do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Oh, it is.
That's the beer recommendation. Thank you for that, Joe. Wonderful, as is every week here on the show. It is time to take a quick break so that we can review Color Out of Space.
This is it, Senator. There's big breaking TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
All right. John Schnars,
Yes, Eric.
you weren't here last week.
No.
I presume you were attending some type of secret society annual meeting kind of thing.
I don't remember exactly, but yes, it's very frequent on my calendar. So
Yeah.
presumably, yeah.
John, running the world is a tough business, It takes coordination.
No, it's true. You gotta meet very frequently, is what it turns out.
Exactly. Presumably, while at these meetings, you use big fancy words. I would think, anyway.
Right. Or just small fancy words. But they're always fancy, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So, John, please use that knowledge you learned at the Bilderberg group last week to bring us the word of the day.
I just wanted to see if Joe noticed that I waited for the point. I was just calling that out.
You know, the problem is, John, I usually have the website and then the Google Doc where we keep track of the beers and everything. I know you don't do any sort of that research or prep.
I did a little bit of research today, Joe. For today's word, The word is meteor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give you 3 words in one, Joe. I want you to, listen up. Meteor, a small body of matter from outer space that enters the Earth's atmosphere, becoming incandescent as a result of friction and appearing as a streak of light. Meteor. It comes to us from the Greek meteoros, which means lofty.
Love it.
A meteor is the small body that enters the Earth's atmosphere. A meteoroid, so meteor plus OID, is a body that's flying around in space that could become a meteor if it entered the Earth's atmosphere. And a meteorite, this was the one I actually started with and worked backwards. Meteorite is what we call a meteor if it lands on the ground and there's like an actual, thing you can put your hands on.
Fun fact. The meteoroid steals your pizza.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask if a meteor was a type of Domino's pizza.
Yeah. I mean, all these words, John, I'm liking body, friction, meaty. It's all going a place I like.
3-way.
I knew it was going to get you a little worked up. So
Got a triple input from John this week. I like it.
Christ. Let's just move along.
Okay. Well, John, you going to tell me what it has to do with this movie, or are you just going to neglect half of the reason why we do this?
Well, yeah, the color. I keep wanting to call it The Color Out of Space. The film, just to be clear, does not have a the in it. It's just Color Out of Space, and in fact, that's largely what the movie's about. You have this family, Nicolas Cage, Jolie Richardson, and then their daughter, played by Madeline Arthur, and then the 2 brothers who I didn't recognize. You have actually no, that's not true. The younger brother, did y'all you remember him? Haunting of Hill House?
Yes, I did recognize. Yeah, I did recognize him.
This kid's got to be a little concerned. He's getting typecast at this point, and he's also in the new Conjuring film.
He's getting
I'm very
typecast.
concerned for this kid.
He's getting typecast as like frail, frightened child.
No, well, what was the kid from? God damn it, from Jerry Maguire.
Jonathan Lipnicki.
No,
Yeah, he's basically like a frailer Jonathan Lipnicki. Like if you like took like 20% of his body mass,
Like
off
Jonathan Lipnicki with more asthma. Is that what you're trying to say?
and thicker glasses. I swear to God, the glasses are artificial.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I figured the glasses in Hill House were just a prop. But
No,
nope.
that's him.
Yeah,
Nope.
that's all him. That's all just
They
bad
saw
genes.
him in that. They're like, can we get that kid? And if they have any thicker glasses, let's see if we can roll those out here.
Right.
But yeah, so as Andy mentioned, or I think it was Andy, this is a Richard Stanley joint. I'm going to let Andy tell us about Richard Stanley in a second, but it is directed from a classic H.P. Lovecraft story set in, I think the town here is Arkham, in the sort of fantasy alternate reality of the Lovecraft universe. The family lives on a farm, and a meteor comes into their farm, and it turns out it's a meteorite. It lands. There's this probably, I don't know, twice the size of a basketball sitting in their backyard. And
I thought it was bigger than that.
Yeah.
all right, well, either way.
What do you think a basketball is? Have you ever
what
played
do you mean,
basketball? Tom?
size? Like a 1.5 feet in diameter? I don't know.
I don't think we need to debate this.
Yeah,
A
this
foot
is
and a
not
half.
the direction I want to go right now.
This sounds great.
In any event, this meteorite lands in their yard, and weird shit just starts happening. Most of it related to color.
Oh.
One other character that's worth kind of mentioning off the top is a hydrologist. He's essentially a land surveyor. He's played by Elliot Knight. I don't know what the character's name is something weird. Ward, I believe. Ward.
Also, he's wearing a Miskatonic University shirt, which you can't miss.
It was very confusing that I kept thinking they were calling him Warren. Because everybody has slightly weirder accents than the next person.
I didn't
no idea what
I
anyone's name
didn't
is.
even catch his name, so it's fine. Surveyor guy.
So Surveyor guy, he sort of becomes our toehold into this story. But essentially with this meteorite, we see just weird shit start happening. These colors start blossoming. Nicolas Cage starts talking in different accents in every scene. And it really devolves from there. So yeah, I mean, we can kind of unpack it as we go, but it's a Lovecraft story, so you can imagine that many things are left to the imagination. There's the Sublime makes an appearance. I don't know.
Love
The band?
Sublime.
is what I
Sublime
got.
with Jim Rose.
Yeah.
Santeria. I know that band.
Mm,
Joe,
yeah.
what'd you think about this bad boy?
I was fine with it. I think visually it's beautiful. It's a beautiful film. I think some of the points you made over email, Eric, I agree with, where I feel like Nick Cage actually kind of takes away from some of this. I don't know if his Nick Caginess really fits in with a lot of what's going on here. Like we talk about, there are certain parts, and I don't think this movie is meant to be a comedy, but like I was just flat out laughing at pretty much every line he was delivering at a certain point.
Can I just pause you? I do think it's meant to be a comedy.
I think some of it's meant to be funny. Yeah.
I think
You
it's
think?
meant to be. I think it's meant. I mean, it's dark,
Not
obviously. but I think it's
funny,
meant to be
right? But
fun.
like blackly kind of funny. Yeah. I mean,
You think?
Not funny, haha, but funny. I'm gonna lose my mind in the vacuum of space.
Joe,
Yeah, there you go.
keep going. Joe, you can keep going. But there, obviously, we debated this old Nick Cage thing a lot over email, and it's like,
Yeah.
at some point, you land on the fact that like you don't cast 2019 Nick Cage without knowing exactly what you're getting. So you got to
Yeah.
think they're expecting him to bring the camp on some level, right?
Oh yeah, and I don't think they didn't purposely do this. I just think it took away from the movie for me. Like I would be into everything that was happening and all the kind of the weird supernatural stuff, and then he would come on screen and just Nick Cage all over the place
Just
and be like, "What the fuck's
Blah,
happening?"
these tomatoes, like just ran.
Yeah.
Now I'm Dracula.
man.
But
now,
even I mean,
now I'm
there's
Southern.
and I don't want to completely dump on this thing because I did enjoy it, but there is like a lot of weird choices with some of the characters where I feel like their reactions to things are very sort of subdued. Like even towards the end when like shit's going down and the water guy is like, no, just come on, everything's gonna be fine, and like shit has really gone off the rails there at a certain point, and like again that could be intentional, but like I felt very like people should be more freaked out by this point. So I don't know, like the tone was a little bit all over the place for me, but like that aside, I thought most of the acting was really well done. I thought, outside of Cage, I thought everybody fit this very well. I thought the daughter, who was kind of the main character at the beginning, I really liked her. Just there was some stuff that kind of threw me off, and Andy can probably articulate a lot better than I can, but yeah, that's what I got.
Don't sell yourself short, Joe.
Hmm.
Casey.
So, if they were like looking for somebody to, that's not a good opening. I was a mark for this movie. I'm a total Nick Cage fanboy. I'm a total Lovecraft fanboy. So you mix them up together, and I'm a happy kid. I really like this movie a ton. I watched it when we first got the screener. I watched it twice that weekend. That's how much I liked it. And I don't usually watch movies twice, especially on the same weekend. I was just really wrapped up into it. And I reread the short story by Lovecraft probably back at the beginning of December, just because I knew this movie was coming. And they followed it really well. This is, from watching a lot of Lovecraft movies, shit like that, this is one of the better ones. Adaptations that I've seen come out on a Lovecraft movie. It's just really well put together. I like Cage. He was cagey. He did have a lot of accents, but hey, that's acting, right?
Acting.
He just hadn't had to be the same character
Is it?
the whole movie.
Because I do a lot of shitty actings on here, and nobody calls me an actor.
I was really
I don't know.
glad. I was really glad that other people noticed the accent thing. And again, it's like you kind of just get your caginess, and that's going to take you, every person, a different amount of mileage out of it, right? But like
But
the
from what we've
accent
seen
thing
the
is
last couple
bananas.
times, the accent was bananas, but from what we've seen the last couple times, this is a rather subdued Nick Cage.
You know what? I might actually give you that point.
Yeah.
At no point in this movie is he in his underwear covered in blood, screaming bloody murder while drinking vodka.
Yeah, chugging vodka out of the
Yeah.
bottle.
Andy.
Yeah, so I think the best way I can describe my reaction to this film is I think that the story behind how this film was made and the filmmakers and the producers behind it, all of that stuff like ended up being more interesting to me than the actual like feature. That being said, like from moment to moment, I found myself pretty drawn into this. Like as you guys have mentioned, like it is a very stylistically, it does have a certain vision about it. And in particular, like the opening sequence of the film in which the camera is kind of like slow zooming through like this primordial forest that, and we get like a voiceover from the hydrologist basically like talking about, basically like setting up the themes of hallucination and then just kind of something being older than time and so on and so forth. Like all of that stuff is like very effective at drawing you in. And in particular, once the filmmaker here, Richard Stanley, once he kind of starts being able to really get into those thematic elements, especially about the family's relationship and the family's relationship specifically with like the mother's mortality, like all of that stuff I thought was like really interesting. That being said, like I feel like it's probably about a half hour too long and it seems padded out in areas that it doesn't need to be padded out in. Overall though, I mean, I have to say like I did enjoy this.
John.
Yeah, I went into this with very little background. I don't even know if I watched the trailer. All I knew was that it was a Lovecraft adaptation. I know I know some things about Richard Stanley, but I'm not like a aficionado. And then the fact that Nicolas Cage was in it, I ended up having a really good time. There's an auteuriness to the way that it comes together. He definitely, there's a vision behind this film that is executed. I think a couple of people have mentioned it, but it's tough to pull together those Lovecraft stories and effectively make them visual without, because so much of it is just kind of left to reader's imagination, a sense of creeping dread, right? Like that's something that he
literally describes things as like indescribable, and so like it's a tough place to start from.
This goes the direction, and I don't know the story, so I'm curious, Casey, if it's like spelled out as explicitly. I mean, it goes the like hallucinatory direction, right? So this is more like acid trip Lovecraft than it is sort of the black abyss that you can't see the bottom of. So
tentacle monsters eating your eyeballs.
There's like color tentacle monsters.
I don't know. I think, but I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of abyss in there. There's a lot of like staring into the unknown as well, I think.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, and the idea of space and what's coming to Earth from space, and Earth being this fucking little ball in the middle of infinite blackness, and listen, I'm here for all of it. I said in the email discussion I was going to be on the pro Cage line, and then I think Eric, you said there wasn't a need to draw lines. It's like, no, there's clearly a need. Like Cage, he's divisive in this film because it is. Look, he's Cage. I think Casey said it. Like you kind of know, or maybe Eric, you said, like, you know what you're going to get with him. Like if you're putting him in your movie, he chews scenery. He's going to overact. I think Mandy is a perfect example of when you sort of turn him loose and he has a sequence of screaming for a solid 60 seconds in his underwear. I mean, those are things that work in the right context. And for me, he worked in this context. I actually don't even disagree with Joe that there are times where it is distracting. I think that was just a decision that was made. Like they chose to live with that or kind of allow it to flow. And I think it does give the film a little bit more of a playful vibe than you would expect to see from something that's meant to be about, again, this sort
Cosmic
of
horror.
infinite blackness and evil. Listen, the sequence, my favorite scene in the film is when they show Nick Cage on the couch with his family watching himself being interviewed by the TV announcer. I can't even remember the exchange, but it is pure gold.
So first he tells the reporter, so they're interviewing him about the meteor
she
crashing.
asked if he's drinking. I remember that.
Yeah, and he's like, or no, she asked him if he had been drinking when this meteor crashed because they saw this flash and these lights or whatever.
And he's describing the colors.
But then he starts just talking about bourbon and how he likes bourbon, and it's kind of fun. He's and then he's frustrated watching himself in the news because he sounds like an idiot. He then gives a detailed description of how him and his wife were about to make love for the first time in years or something.
No, he gave that to the mayor. The news anchor was more just the description of what kind of bourbon he likes and why. And also he's pissed off because he didn't comb his hair. Like, it's insane.
he kept yelling for his wife who's in the
Yeah.
kitchen cut, and it's actually like a pretty big scene. She ends up like cutting her finger. I mean, long story
man,
short, there's
that
a
shit is
bunch of
crazy.
wacky shit. It is not a perfect film. I think there's probably 10 to 15 minutes you could cut out of this, or maybe not even that much. I just think there's places where you could tighten this up. There's a lot of plot stuff that feels furry, shaggy. It's the shaggy dog kind of feeling to it at times.
No,
It's-
that was Tommy Chung.
Well, no, but that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's kind of a stoner movie. Like,
Yeah,
you don't
totally.
cast Tommy Chung.
100%.
Well, and that's my point. Is like, as long as you appreciate that that's what it is, like, then okay, like you just have to kind of suck up the. All right, there's times where this is a little shaggier than it needs to be. But I thought Tommy Chung was dead. Actually, I'll just lay it out there.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
And he
Samesies.
was great.
John,
Yeah, no, 100% same.
the
Yeah.
Masked
It's
Singer.
really
Dude,
good.
I
he was the
love-
best singer.
I
Oh,
loved his
alright.
final scene. I love that makeup and whatever they were
That was
doing to
good.
his voice and the shit he was saying. Like, so good.
And The Masked Singer.
This is a really interesting movie, and like, I really love this movie. I knew absolutely nothing about it going in. I saw 20 seconds of the trailer, and that was enough. I saw H.P. Lovecraft. I saw Nicolas Cage. I saw Purple Lights, and I'm like, I got an idea what this is going to be. You know, because lately, especially if I have control over the trailer, I'm like, you know, this looks kind of cool. I want to see it. I don't need to see anymore. But I think if we talk too much about Cage, what we might be in danger of missing is the fact that this is, in my opinion, a really beautifully shot film. I think it's got a lot of craft to it. I think that definitely low budget, and the low budget does shine through in some of the effects, but I actually think he does a lot with that budget. Again, like, there are shades of the monster design that remind me of something like In the Mouth of Madness, which to me, I've never read any Lovecraft. That's a lie. I tried to once when I was in college, and I was like, I don't get this. But obviously, like, you can't be a horror fan and not appreciate on some level the influence that he's had on the genre. Even filmmakers who aren't making Lovecraft movies, and whether even if they're conscious of it, have been influenced by his stories on some level. And so I definitely find his work really fascinating. This, I think, does one of the best jobs I've ever seen of transferring that unknowable kind of thing to the screen in a cosmic horror. Again, like, I think the creature design reminds me of In the Mouth of Madness. In the Mouth of Madness, I think, is better, but it's like an all-time movie for me. But there are certainly, too, I think, some things like I want the creatures to be a little more tactile, a little less CGI. Although I think the design is great. Like, I love the weird mutiny limbs, different chimera kind of things happening of the design. It's just that the CG quality doesn't always raise itself to it. But I think overall, he's really doing a lot with a little. And Andy, I know, like, over email you mentioned, like, it's just kind of like purpley. I thought the stuff was really beautiful, and I really like the little subtle touches of, like, the little insect thing, like, because it's what I like about this movie, and it's what's weird about talking about a Nick Cage movie is there's a ton of subtle things happening in this movie. There's also a ton of unsubtle things happening, but some of the subtle things are the things I like the most. Like, you talk about this thread, this quote in the beginning about, you know, one person sees things, it's a hallucination, but if everybody sees them, then it sort of becomes reality. And that's what's happening in this movie, and it's why I actually love the weird non-reactions that some characters have later on, because I think the point is that the whole world around them is subtly changing to the point where it's becoming reality, and that's why in some ways they're not reacting the way you might expect them to be. And I think it makes the movie creepier. Like in this scene where there are some incredibly disturbing scenes in this movie, like the finger chopping, the scene with the mother like reabsorbing her son is one of the most disturbing things I think I've ever seen. And this scene in particular has some of these weird reactions where, like, this is just reality now, and they're talking in a weird way that feels muted for what the hell they're witnessing. But I love that.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
But
like,
I think it
feels
makes
very strange.
I think it makes the movie creepier because of how they're just all settled into what's going on. You're like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening right now? And this sound design is going bananas. One last thing, Andy, and then we'll roll into it here. Like, my thing with Cage is, like, I'm weirdly 50-50 on it. I always love Nick Cage. Like, he's fucking fun to watch. You watch a modern Nick Cage movie, you have absolutely no idea what you're going to see from him, and he goes way out there in some scenes. He's more subdued in others, but he's got weird accents halfway through for no reason. I think there's part of me that feels like this movie is too good for Nick Cage. It's the only way I can describe it, because if you look at Mandy,
how dare you?
I think Mandy is really a similar movie in that it's very like cosmic horror. It's very colorful. It's very it's more over the top. But like I think Mandy meets Nick Cage where he's at, if that makes sense, and in over the topness, but also in sloppiness. Like Nick Cage is a sloppy actor, even when he's being fun, and I think Mandy is also that way, even as interesting as that movie is. I think this is like a super well crafted movie, and there's times where I'm seeing these sublime visuals, and like I'm loving the way they're like working the actual Lovecraft prose into certain scenes, and then Nick Cage is like just mashing tomatoes into his face and getting angry, and it's like I'm laughing. I loved this movie, but there's just part of me that wonders, like, if you put a real actor in Nick Cage's role, where does this go?
No.
Like, could you elevate this? I don't know. I again, like, I love it, but I kept going back to that because there are scenes that I could see some people getting taken out of in this movie, because you're like, what's this dude doing right now? Like, he looks like he doesn't even know where he is some of the time.
He probably doesn't. Like, let's be honest.
No, come on. I don't know. I think, like I said, if you basically have to just take that stuff as intentional, because again,
It's fine if it's intentional. I'm just saying I don't know if it 100% works all the time.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's fair. I mean, if that's where you land on it, no, your opinion is wrong, and you're wrong.
At the same time, though, he made me laugh a lot, and like I appreciate that. There's this scene I mentioned over just to you guys on GChat where I think it was an ad lib. It had to be. He sits down on the couch to console his son, and he sits down. You see him as an actor, like, sit down, and he sits on top of a stuffed animal, and without missing a beat, he just picks it up and angrily hucks it across the room, and like it has nothing to do with the scene, but I feel like he just sat on that thing and was like, what the, and like threw it and just went with it in an acting moment. Yeah. That popped me maybe more than anything else in this movie.
I mean, like, the other thing about it that I think we have to like modulate when we're talking about Nick Cage's performance in this movie is the fact that this meteor, like this cosmic influence on the family, like, is introduced like really early on, right? Like, it's probably within like the first like 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
At least.
And then like there's a very clear point in which, like, once the meteor like hits like the property of like the Gardner family, which is a great name, hilariously thematically appropriate. Once like the meteor like hits the ground, there's like a definitive shift in everyone's behavior. And there's actually like a very like prominent shot. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when the youngest son, Jack, like can't speak, they like bring him into the house, they set him down on the couch, and it's kind of like a one take in which the camera's like slowly pushing in like on Jack's face. And then while that's happening, all of the other family members are circulating around him and like filling the frame. And then there's this shot in which like Nick Cage like makes a drink and he's like sitting in front of his son, like drinking like bourbon on the rocks, and his wife's like, this is what you're gonna do right now. And so from that moment you kind of know that something has changed, like something is not going to be the same with his family. And I like really thought that shot was effective and very like economic. And I think for me in particular, watching this film, it was kind of weird kind of trying to reconcile the economy of that sequence with like all of the other sequences that come later.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that this might just not be my bag. Like, cosmic horror and like Lovecraft just might not be my thing, and I totally like recognize that. But I also kind of like love Mandy. Like, I will like go to bat and defend Mandy. Like, I'll like forever.
I mean, Mandy is certainly in some sense more visceral, more action-packed, a little more of a linear story, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? Like, this is a lot more about, people sort of slowly going crazy because of a thing that you can't fully grasp as the viewer.
Sure.
Because it's implied, right? It's a lot of them reacting to the abyss and these lights and these things they're seeing and feeling, which is all, that's very subtle storytelling, you know?
Sure.
See,
And
and a
like,
big-
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
I was gonna say to your point though, with like a big difference between this and the story. The story, it's the Gardner family. Similar things are happening, but in that story, it's more coming from a third party observer that witnessed these events. So while here in the movie, we're actually sitting here watching this happen into the Gardners and how Nick Cage's reaction changing and stuff like that. In the original story, it was a little bit different in that we're seeing bits and pieces of how things have changed every time that this narrator has gone back to the property.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
it explains a little bit of the kind of the probably the chunkiness of it because they had to do some creative stuff there to get that what they needed for the movie.
Was
And-
there
Yeah, I
anything
would-
with the water or like the contamination? Because like that felt a little tacked on to me. Like I didn't really.
Yeah, I don't know that they do a great job of weaving that surveyor character
Yeah.
throughout
like,
the film.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely the attempt to do what Casey's talking about.
Yeah.
See, for me, it worked. Like so basically, there's
You
this
mean the
whole
hydrologist that also knows about meteors?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. He's just a super smart guy. They do paint the rest of the town, including the mayor, as just
Yokels.
complete hillbillies.
Well,
Yeah,
because that, I
and-
mean, and there's a thread there where so Nicolas Cage is like a writer, is that right? And his wife is
I
some
think he's
kind
an artist, right?
an artist, and his
we
wife
never see him do anything.
his-
just to be
Yeah.
clear.
his wife is some kind of highfalutin like money person, and they moved back to this town to move into his parents' farm. And there's a line thrown out about how he like never wanted to move back there, and look here, you know what I mean? So there's definitely talk about the town kind of being yokely.
You
Yeah.
do see him milk an alpaca, though.
You do.
Yes, you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Like
Now, actually, the water stuff was pretty integral to the original story too. The reservoir that they mentioned briefly, because that's what I was saying in an email earlier today. That's like if you had to compare the two, the stuff with the reservoir and this hydrologist felt like it was more tacked on for this movie, just as an excuse to get this third party there. While there wasn't a lot more about the reservoir and stuff in the original story, it was still more cohesive of a setup to get the person out there, but it is also a different era too.
Yeah. I feel like there was a few things like that really I just didn't understand where they were going with it, but the hydrologist felt like the biggest one.
Well, and I will agree too that it feels a little. I mean, it's an hour 50. I wish I need to start filming my reactions when I'm about to look up the duration, just so I can send it to Joe. Because I was like, oh, come on, dude. And
I just
but
assume
again,
anything over like an hour 35, you have the same reaction I do.
you know what's weird though? It's like, you tell me, I mean, it's Scorsese, but you tell me a movie is 3 hours long. I'm like, okay, this is like a complex story. I'm almost more willing to go with a 3-hour movie than I am an hour and 50, because to me, there's almost no movie that's an hour and 50 minutes that can't be an hour 30 with like some judicious editing. Whereas like if you're making a 3-hour movie, it's because you're trying to tell a really big complex story. I'm willing to give you like at least the benefit of the doubt going in. But an hour
That's a
50,
really good
I'm
point.
like an hour 50, I'm like, dude, get out of here with this bullshit. This was like you needed an editor and they didn't supply you one.
It's honestly like a really good point, because I feel like anything that's over 2 hours, I'm like, all right, I'm strapping in for something. But like an hour 47, I'm like, you're just being a dick now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, like to kind of take it back to the beginning a little bit, just so we can kind of talk about that padding or like that time frame and like why this film stretches on. Like really, like within the first like half of the film, it kind of sets it up like we almost have like 3 main characters, right? Because it opens with a narration from the hydrologist from Ward. Then we kind of transition to be in Lavinia, the daughter, like her place. Then like later we kind of are more so in Nick Cage's position. And for me, it was a little bit difficult to like kind of figure out where the film was trying to anchor me. In particular, you know, like once shit starts going down on the family farm, Nick Cage very much kind of becomes this curiosity for his children, curiosity
Yeah.
and also like something to fear, right? But for the rest of the film, it's pretty much just people just deteriorating, and
Yeah.
I'm not really like taken on any kind of like journey other than watching these people
Well,
kind of.
And maybe
going
that's
through that
maybe
process.
that's intentional because it leaves you out on a life raft by yourself. You know what I mean? Which I think could lend
Sure.
to the disorienting nature of it.
That's,
I mean,
but
like,
that's
and
like a really bad way to make a movie. I mean, to me, this is the worst problem with the movie is that, the hydrologist, as much as it's unevenly deployed here, he's definitely the only thing that we have that we can hold on to as the audience. And he is the bookend of the movie. That's why I say he's definitely supposed to be that narrator that Casey's describing. The issue is that you're not. It's not. It's like almost a third person omniscient perspective that you get, and that's where, to Andy's point, you kind of jump around. I did also like him because he's the most normal actor / person in the movie. I mean, you want him to be your anchor. You just want him in there a little, I don't know, a little more.
And his like milquetoast is his character kind of is. He's a very charismatic performer, and I think that goes a long way too.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, we've seen other movies where you have a narrator character kind of like that ties things together, and there's usually cut back to the narration like between acts or something like that to help kind of highlight that they're still doing that narration thing. Do you think that would have helped here?
Well, it also would have helped to know who, like, there's kind of a middle. They're in this middle ground of like, I'm gonna say something that might sound weird, but like, who the hell is he working for, right? Because like, there's this whole element of them building this the reservoir. That's like the big thing that the mayor's doing. It's going to flood out a lot of their land, and we're left to think, oh no, like the water is poisoned, and now it's going to poison the whole eastern seaboard with this meteorite, I don't know, detritus. But the reality is, like, he sort of seems to be a lone wolf. Like, it's kind of like, who knows what the hell
I thought at the beginning he did say who he worked for when he.
I thought he said he worked for the water company, but I could be wrong.
Sure, but I guess, like, I don't know why. Like, at a certain point, like, what is his motivation to keep going back? Like, why wouldn't he just be like, "Fuck it, I'm out of here"? Like, there's.
He was into Lavinia, wasn't he?
Science. Yeah, I think he's got the. He's got
but did you believe that? Like, I don't know.
No, I mean, like, it's
I believed it. I believed in love, Jim.
You could feel their energy with the legs looking at or something. Whatever.
It was kind of weird because they obviously set him up to be like a post-college, straight out of college type of person, whereas Lavinia, some of the comments the mom made her towards her and stuff made it seem like maybe she was still more in high school, so that was kind of confusing.
I loved some of the one-off quick hit hallucinations. Like, you just reminded me when you said, "Are you looking at my legs or whatever?" Like, they do a bunch of weird things like that. I think it's that dude, right, where he just kind of has a weird flash. There's just like, "Are you looking at my legs?" Like, and then it's weird. And it's Nick Cage's face, and like, I think the movie does a great job of doing that stuff randomly to kind of keep you on your toes, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I really love the scene when Nick Cage finally poured himself another glass of bourbon and sat down to watch TV, and it was just the colors on there and they kind of panned out from that. I thought that was a great setup.
Was he supposed to be an alcoholic? Like, is that what they were implying? Like, him and his father?
You're definitely getting, like, at least I got a lot of Shining miniseries vibes, especially where, like, the rest of the film kind of goes. That's kind of what I was getting from it.
I really liked, the other thing I really liked is, again, I very much enjoyed the visual stuff in this movie. I liked the stuff around the well, where it's the well itself is kind of like a look into the abyss, and it sort of climbs out and sucks things in, and that stuff is neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the set design of their house in particular was really interesting, because I believe this is like an exterior location, I think, anyway. And then they honestly, like, they kind of just like dress it to look more stagey in a certain way. And I thought all of that stuff was really effective, especially with like kind of the invasive species, which again, like, kind of goes back to some of the film's like more stronger components. As we're introduced to Lavinia, she's like kind of conducting this ritual. I'm trying to choose my words carefully because Cece's not here to correct me. She's basically like kind of conducting this ritual to cure her mom of like any leftover cancer, and which is honestly like one of the more interesting character components that like weaves throughout the story, because there's always this kind of sense that something is invading our space, or like there's something that's like inside the planet or inside the well or inside our bodies that's just taking over and spreading and like poisoning everything.
It's true.
And in particular, Eric, I think you mentioned this earlier, like there was that sequence in which she is basically fused with somebody, and like no joke, like regardless of how I feel about the film as a whole, that was like one of the most disturbing like moments.
What an
and, like,
incredibly memorable sequence in part. I mean, the visuals, the effects, but also I was
The
wearing
sound of it.
I was wearing
just-
headphones. The sound design in this movie in general is really bananas. But what I was noticing was that as the kid was getting slowly more and more reabsorbed into her, the sound that was coming out of this monster thing was sounding more like a baby, which was like, maybe it's a parent.
yeah.
I know that noise kind of pings everyone's like primal brain centers, but like especially as a parent when you've just gone through it, I can't hear that noise. Like, get your babies away from me. I don't want to hear it. And so hearing it, especially in that horrifying context, was like I had almost like couldn't listen.
Yeah, and like that was like one of the few moments in the film in which I think Nick Cage's performance like actually hits some pathos.
It's a really tortured, sweet moment there where you think he's gonna put her down.
Yeah.
Man,
Oh yeah, definitely.
they have a real
Because
moment
you're just
there.
waiting for it to happen.
I gotta say too, like, it's got to be the first time in years that something Nick Cage did in a movie made me feel real, genuine human emotion, other than like, LOL. You know. Because even in Mandy, right? Like
Declaration of Independence.
in Mandy, he's mourning whatever you know what happens, but it's like it's so over the top, and he's so over the top in the movie that it's not like this. This is and there's a good amount of work done on their relationship. I think going all the way back to the beginning, even though he's telling the mayor about it for some reason, but like she's had a mastectomy, and you know that they're trying to reconnect, and like a surprising amount of like chemistry there. And the other thing I really appreciate, do you guys know the actress that plays his wife? She looked familiar to me, but I don't know her name.
Jolie Richardson.
Yeah, Jolie Richardson. Yeah.
So, excuse me. What I liked about her is like, whether intentional or not, it's like she's kind of meeting Cage where he is. Like, she gives a kind of a weird performance too, in a way I really enjoyed. Because if you're gonna be there, you kind of got to meet him there, right? Like, and she gives a kind of weird, stilted performance too, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like I enjoyed it, but it's weird, and it's almost a little cagey.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the good sign too that she handles it well, like you said, because it's a sign that things are going wrong too after meteorite lands. Because as she starts to obsess more and more over her business, and it becomes more and more apparent that she's not really, doing a whole lot of business, and when she's throwing down the anger with him and about the internet and stuff like that, just another interesting take on it. But it, like you said, it shows that she was kind of digging into that weird ass performance as well.
I'm curious
Many
what
of
her
you-
job was.
Yeah.
She
She
was like a
does what John
stockbroker.
does.
It was very.
She does what John does.
It was very movie ease of like buy, sell, numbers.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
you know what's funny? I actually thought it was like some of the most accurate
Oh, I
sort
mean,
of
they
trader
definitely-
language I've seen.
Oh, yeah,
they,
no,
they
no.
like knew what they were talking about.
No, the person who wrote this movie called a trader friend to consult and got the language for sure. But it's
Yeah,
just it's more about like coming out of an actor's mouth. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's
I don't
fair.
think. Excuse me. I don't think anyone who takes their job seriously moves out in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere and relies on like a shitty Wi-Fi connection over Skype.
Was
to
her
take that
like?
job.
But was her
So
calls?
many
Was
scenes
her
of her yelling at him about the wife.
was
Yeah.
her calls though breaking up? Was that giving anyone else anxiety? Like, do you just you understand that tech rage of like something not working that should be really simple?
100%, absolutely.
Like when
Like,
something goes
just-
wrong in the show, you guys have seen me.
Think
Yeah.
of all of the alpaca mittens that they can get, all of that stuff.
I
A
love
lot of alpaca
love-
talk.
I love this whole weird scene in the beginning where Nick Cage is like, he's made some weird French thing for his family for dinner that nobody wants to eat, and then he's like,
SLA, bro.
offhandedly, he just goes like, "Wait until spring, we'll all be eating alpaca," and they're like, "What? No, you don't eat alpaca."
I feel like this director had invested in an alpaca farm and was like, I gotta get people on board with alpacas somehow. Like, let's
gotta make-
shoehorn this in here.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no way those were in the book, right? I mean,
The alpacas were not in the. No alpacas were milked in the book.
Yeah,
Dang.
he's like, "I gotta make
That
this
was
alpaca
weird.
thing happen."
Many of you might know Julie Richardson from a little film called Event Horizon.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
sure.
okay,
No,
okay.
she's not quite like Cage's equal in craziness and
No,
you know,
no, but I think there's a
she's
tinge
been
there.
around.
Yeah, but she's leaning in. She was leaning into the performance to match him, though.
When she snaps about the Wi-Fi towards the end, like she was going toe to toe with him.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm sure that happens, right? When you're on set with an actor every day, and you're like I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, I mean,
like, what are you gonna do though? Like, I'm sure you meet when you have to play opposite him. I'm sure you're like, well, if I don't do something, no one's gonna pay attention to me in this scene.
I gotta cut my fingers off today.
Yeah, you got to figure there's a lot of actresses that get the script and see it's going to be starring Nick Cage, and their first reaction was, shit.
The finger cutting scene is so good, and I think it's like a little microcosm of how well this is directed, because
it's very simple.
It's simple, and a scene like that works from very measured directing and editing, right? It's about like pacing and repetition and lulling you kind of into comfort, and then you do it, right? And it's like she's cutting the thing and it keeps cutting back and forth, and she's cutting the food and she's getting angrier, and then she kind of zones out, and it's just like it's really well done. And I think that directing in that scene is an interesting microcosm of the rest of the movie.
It also explains why that kid has such thick glasses.
Does it?
Why?
Yeah, it's like the when she cuts her fingers, like blood squirts all over his face.
They're like protective.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Just goggles.
Oh shit, Mom's cutting carrots again. Get the goggles.
Yeah, what pencil do you think she was making?
I don't like that she finished cutting the carrots and then said dinner's ready. Like, what dinner is prepared once the raw carrots are finished?
Hey, maybe she was cooking dinner for the alpacas.
That's true.
That's a good point. Yes, she was speaking to the alpacas outside. Dinner's ready.
I didn't mind her fingers being cut off. I minded that, like, all right, I'm done cutting this carrot. Dinner is served. I'm like, no, Ma, fuck you.
She put some butter on that?
Maybe that's why Nick Cage kicks cassoulet, because she can't cook for shit.
Maybe it was a salad. I don't know. But whatever it was bullshit. Like, Ma, you bled all over the carrots.
Joe needs his fiber.
I need something. Put some effort into it. I'll help.
I didn't even think about that. We only barely mentioned the scene where at this point the shit's starting to really ramp up, and like in the previous scene, Nick Cage is over the moon at how big his tomatoes are, right? Which, like, we know is ominous, because this is very, if you've ever seen Creepshow, this movie is very reminiscent of The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, in that this thing is all the life is growing rapidly, right? All the vegetation and stuff, which kind of makes me wonder, because I know King was like a Lovecraft fan. Like, I wonder if he was taking inspiration from that, because it's like in some ways it's very similar. But like, so that just happens, right? And then it's like a couple scenes later, something else is happening, and in the background of the scene we see Nick Cage eating tomatoes, and like they don't taste right, and so he's furiously biting each one and spitting it out, and he's looking more like angry and disgusted each time. And then finally he just starts shouting about the tomatoes, and like, but what I love about it is it has nothing to do with the scene. Like, the scene is something different that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's when the mother is like getting on him about fixing the Wi-Fi, and like he can't bother because he's like focused on these tomatoes,
just
and they're both
them
just
into
like
his face.
ramping up.
Wouldn't you be pissed though if the tomato, like, he was so hyped for
But
the tomatoes.
that's
Really, they were there like a month early. Like, I get it. I mean, we grow a
Yeah.
garden every summer, and if I got those beautiful tomatoes and brought them inside and they taste like shit, I'd be pissed.
But what makes it right, and that's what makes it so good though, is the setup of how excited he was in the scene before.
I mean, especially if their dinners consist of like just cut up raw carrots.
Just raw
like, I have
vegetables.
to assume one of those tomatoes was meant to be dinner.
Oh yeah, just a tomato, a little bit of salt on it.
Dinner's ready.
That's
No,
it.
I don't know. I'm not sure they're gonna put salt on it.
Isn't that
That's
like
true.
a caprese salad or something?
Yeah, caprese salad, sure.
Well, they got that milk.
Alpa-
Did you see him?
Yeah.
It's true. They got that alpaca milk.
Alpaca cheese, little tomato.
You'll be happy to know that the abundant harvest was part of the story too.
Oh, there you go.
I would assume, yeah.
Anything else you guys want to bring up?
I guess just quick, if anyone's interested in learning more about Richard Stanley, the director, there's a wonderful, amazing documentary called Lost Souls that basically chronicles his journey as like an early filmmaker into the making of The Island of Dr. Moreau, and how that film was eventually like taken away from him.
Oh, okay, he's the Dr. Moreau guy. Like, I'm no lie, I know nothing about this dude as a filmmaker. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the documentary is fantastic, and highly recommend that people listen to it. And then if you see this film and you end up liking it, or you should also check out the episode of Visitations with Elijah Wood and I think Daniel Noah is the other guy's name. They interview Richard Stanley a little bit too. So if you want some background.
Andy, you probably know more about this. We got an early look at this from the distributor, but this is about to be available for people to check out. Is that right?
Yes,
I think it's out now.
Yeah, there's going to be like a kind of nationwide like screening, I think tomorrow.
By the time you hear this,
actually...
yeah, it'll be Friday.
Sorry?
So it'll be Friday by the time people hear this.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's going to be like some screenings going on like this week. And so yeah, check out like your local like art house movie theaters. Chances are one or a few of them are screening it. Some of them are actually showing a Q&A with Patton Oswalt. Moderated by Patton Oswalt with Nick Cage and some of the actors of the film too. So kind of cool.
Nice. Is it streaming now or not yet?
You know, I don't know about that.
For some reason, I thought I saw some kind of on demand or something. Yeah,
I know it's screening in like several like movie theaters across the country, but I'm not sure what its like digital status is. I'm guessing it probably will be available digitally soon.
At least soon after, yeah. So keep an eye out. Yeah. Colorado Space, would you recommend it, Joe?
I would wait for home video, but I think it's worth a watch then.
John?
Yes.
Casey?
Absolutely.
Andy?
I would honestly try to see it in a theater because I think with a crowd, this is going to be really funny.
Yeah.
Well, your job is hanging on this, Andy. So you're a little.
No, I'm actually with Andy on this, in that like it's a weird movie, and if you go to see this, you're going to be there with a lot of like-minded people, and I think that could be a cool experience if you happen to live in one of these cities that's playing. So that's my thought. Either way, definitely check it out. Thumbs up for me. All right, guys, let's do a quick break and do some fan mail.
They were resting in peace until they were rudely interrupted.
What do you want to do, Scud? Turn over gravestones?
I just want to party.
This place is a mess.
Now look who's awake. They're on the way. They're back from the grave and ready to party.
I think things are getting out of hand.
The Return of the Living Dead. Rated R.
Hey, this is Brian O'Halloran. You might know me from such films as Clerks, Clerks 2, Brutal Massacre. You're listening to BloodyGoodHorror.com.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we are back. info@bloodygoodhorror.com's email address. No emails this week. Joe, though, we got other stuff going on.
We do. Do you want to talk about your year-end list though before we get into it?
Yes, I do, Joe.
Yeah.
Let's call
I'm
this.
So excited to be here for this.
As of today, Joe, this is the #1 horror movie of 2020. Not 2020.
Bumping underwater. Yeah. While I'm doing this, I completely forgot to mention that some of the Lords of Chaos were featured in this movie in the soundtrack from the Sister Listening. We had Mayhem. We had our buddy Varg, which
weird.
You know, there's some concerns there, but yeah. All right, so right now I was thinking about this morning. I am gonna create my list along with you, but I'm actually gonna do it for every movie we see and then bump stuff as it doesn't make it. So I will put this at my number 2 right now, but nice. I don't know if it'll stay there.
Oh, so it doesn't.
Wait,
so you're putting it on
underwater right now.
So you're putting everything on the list until you have 10, and then you'll just bump if necessary.
I'll move stuff. Yeah.
Got it. That's smart.
Thanks, man.
Sounds like
I'm just gonna fill it with the first 10 movies I see, and then that's it.
And then stop for the year.
I like when Eric just arbitrarily places things, even though there's nothing above it. Sometimes.
#1 movie of the year, John. That is flawless.
No,
Joe, people may have
Yes,
noticed.
sir.
This is exciting stuff. People may have noticed we have a new logo.
We sure do,
a
buddy.
new look. It is green.
It's green. It's spooky.
Yeah,
there's
the inspiration actually comes from another Lovecraft movie. I think that we had our poster done up 2 years ago for the 10-year meetup that we did. We did the midnight screening of Reanimator. So that look, that we had like a kind of zombie Herbert West type kind of logo drawn up and a poster. We've now taken that and we've distilled it down into a more usable logo. That green color is now going to be our branding across everything. The rollout's been slow. We're kind of getting there, and eventually the whole site's going to look this way. But yeah, right now the stream, podcast apps, by the time people hear this, should all be updated. Social stuff, so it's pretty exciting. It's a fresh, new look, Joe, and we hopefully will have a T-shirt soon. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, we 100% will. The T-shirt is going live as of tomorrow. We're recording on a Tuesday. It'll be live Wednesday. And it kind of coincides with TeePublic is doing another sale, 35% off all their merch. So that's starting tomorrow. It actually goes through Sunday, the 26th. So I think folks will probably hear us on Friday. So you'll still have a couple of days. But yeah, we're going to have the new design launched. It's going to be on sale. So hopefully, everybody can pick it up who wants it. And yeah, we're rolling it out on, it's already on our Twitter and Facebook. You guys may have noticed it, but I'm very excited. I confirmed the sale dates because we had an issue last time. TeePublic moved some stuff around without telling us, but these ones are good to go. So yeah, you should be able to get the T-shirt as you are hearing this.
Yep, and the green looks pretty dope on black shirt, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it's got very much, it's like a circle design. It's very much sort of, I think Casey likened it to the Misfits logo, but to me it reminds me of a lot of like the old like Ramones logo. That's kind of circle. It's gonna look real cool, kids. You're gonna look real freaking cool.
Yeah. And
fresh
bonus, it has our whole name on it.
Yeah,
which is good for.
And if you get a tattoo of it, I'll send you a free T-shirt.
All right.
Just put that out there.
It would make a cool tattoo, Joe.
Yeah, make a great tattoo.
I don't know. I got a lot of good advertising space right here.
John,
you want a free T-shirt too, Casey? I'll send you one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
John, I told you, exciting things happening at Bloody Good Horror in 2020.
All year long.
Yeah, that's right. All right, what do we got on Twitter?
Yeah, for those of you not in the know, or what we're doing over here, we use the hashtag AskBGH over on the tweets. We are at BG Horror. Ask BGH if you want to send in a question or comment about the movie or just need some life advice. We're here for you. First up from fellow patron, that's Whitney at Whitney's Palace. The new intro music always makes me dance. I start with some hip pops around 8 seconds, then move into full body shimmy around 15 seconds, and throw in a few hip thrusts depending on my mood.
Hip thrusts.
What's
Settle down with the thrusts.
Go-to dance move? I feel like I've already thrown out my back just reading that. What's your go-to dance move? She asks.
Most of my dancing happens above the waist. There's not a lot happening with the feet and the legs, but it's a lot of I got I mean, you've seen probably most of them if you watch the stream every week.
I like a good head nod, like a bob,
I mean, the listeners watching the live streams already seen my go-to dance move, whatever that is.
Penguin.
My favorite dance moves are Joe's.
The butt. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I really appreciate Joe's when we used to. Some of our bumpers had some pretty hardcore dubstep. Joe's dancing to that was always furious. Hand chopping was always a favorite of mine.
Yeah, I'll fucking bust a move, man.
Yeah.
I love a shopping cart or that lawnmower, either one.
Yeah, I enjoy some 1980s hardcore picking up change and pizza making. It's just me.
Mine is very interpretive. It changes from song to I just let the music flow through me.
Yeah.
Well, you're a spiritual person.
Yeah, that's true. People say that about me.
I dance for the honeys. That's really what I do it. Next up, we got two from our buddy Skizbot. Confession time. I have never seen a single Cheech and Chong movie. What's a piece of movie pop culture that you still haven't experienced, or do you want to get around to watching it at some point?
I've never seen one all the way through because they're terrible.
Really?
They're so bad.
I
mean, I think they're interesting from a sort of cultural curiosity standpoint, but as an entertainment movie, I don't know that I can get behind that.
I mean, like, I've never seen Smokey and the Bandit. Is that like qualified?
Oh,
It's terrible.
yeah.
I've actually never seen that either. Now that you say that,
Really? Those are.
I don't think. I mean, I've seen like parts of it. I'm sure, but
That era of Burt Reynolds, just chef's kiss. Everything he did was pure gold.
I'd say there's like 3 Cheech and Chong movies that are worth watching, but like you get into the Corsican Brothers and stuff, no.
Yeah, the later stuff where like they aren't smoking, it's like,
Yeah.
what's the point here?
You know, I've never seen Ernest Plays Basketball.
Honestly, the only
I think
Ernest
that's
movie I've ever seen is Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh, it's the best.
Ernest goes to camp.
I've never seen
I saw
another
that
one.
in the theater.
I've never seen another one.
Opening night.
Like I only saw that one because it was horror adjacent, and it's amazing.
Looking at that, grossed $500 million. Look at that.
What did?
Partially thanks to me at the Scotia Cinema. I can't think of anything. I wish I had read this earlier, but there's nothing that's. I guess if there's one thing I missed, Saving Private Ryan is always the movie that I feel like I have to go watch.
I know.
Oh, interesting.
I've never seen any Lord of the Rings movies. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
You dodged a bullet.
Also,
there, buddy.
Avengers. I've never seen an Avengers movie.
Oh,
hold on.
Yeah, I have not seen any of the Avengers.
You mean just the Avengers ones, or you've never seen like the Thor movies
I
or
saw
Captain America movies?
I saw Captain America. I saw 10 minutes of Thor before I turned it off because it's a garbage movie. I saw the first Iron Man. I saw the second Iron Man, which sucks. And I saw Wonder Woman, which is a different thing, but still very good.
Yeah, that's not related at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, same lines as Eric there. Yeah, I've never seen the. I fell asleep during the first Avengers and missed half of it.
Does it count if I keep thinking about it since I got Disney Plus? Like I put it on a list of. I put it on my list. Save list.
In the summer, maybe you and I will make an agreement that like we'll watch like one a month or so, and we can
and we'll do it. We'll do a spinoff.
Yeah.
Can you guys, Eric, can you and Mark please do a Patreon exclusive like audio record or like commentary for all the Lord of the Rings movies, please?
I think that Game of Thrones probably ruined me on ever being able to go revisit that stuff. Like,
But
like
do it for the
14
fans.
hours of walking. That's pretty much what those movies are.
Eric and Mark are going to have problems with like the social implications against little people too.
All right, big guy.
All right, we should move on. Second one from Skidspot. Do people really wear those big yellow gloves to wash dishes? I've only ever seen it in movies.
My wife.
We need to talk about how that kid was cleaning that knife.
I didn't catch that.
That's how you cut yourself.
I think that typically ladies wear those gloves more than men because they care more about the health of their hands.
Boy.
No, Joe, I wash dishes like at least twice a day. I'm just saying I don't wear them.
Let's move on.
I wear them when I like clean our bathroom. I don't wear them when I do dishes.
Yeah, if I'm using bleach, sure.
Yeah.
This disgusts Leslie. I don't wear gloves doing anything. I wash my hands after, so honestly, I don't care if I'm touching fecal.
Hey, why clean your feet? Why clean your hands?
Yeah, no. Well, hey, don't get me started on this. I don't put my feet in my mouth.
Okay, let's Andy. Don't.
All right, let's move on. Next up from Chris Eleanti. That's Chili AF. He actually sent in a poll, so we can give our answer while we're doing this. Quick poll for the BGH crew: is H.P. Lovecraft overrated, genius if Nick Caged?
I have never read anything.
I can't. I couldn't say. I just think he is noteworthy for the influence he's had in the genre, but I can't actually grade the material.
Being a fan and reading a lot of it, they still can't go ahead and say he's a genius. But
you say genius if Nick Cage, it doesn't allow me to add my own.
I'm going with the third one.
Okay, all right. All right. We're tied. No one has said overrated. Well, there's only been 2 votes. So 50-50 genius and genius if Nick Caged. We'll keep an eye on that. Next up from our buddy Christian. That's at ShineMaster9000. BGH gets funding to create their own horror movie. With your combined knowledge of horror movies, what does this movie end up looking like? Follow up. If you guys end up reviewing this hypothetical movie on the podcast, do you end up recommending it to listeners or not?
That seems like a conflict of interest.
Yeah. I think we would obviously recommend it.
We're above that for journalistic reasons.
Yeah, we got to make money.
I don't know what the line between hardcore and softcore pornography is, but I feel like that's where this movie would be. Like,
That's Jello.
yeah.
It's probably not going to have a strong through line either, because we get distracted easily.
It's between all of the cores, really. Is what I was trying to say.
It's the gamut of cores.
Sure. I mean, the real answer is that the five of us could never agree on what kind of movie to make. We'd all want to do something else.
That'd be terrible.
And then if Cece ever comes back home and like starts tossing in her ideas, we're all,
Do we want?
I think it'll be honestly whatever Cece wants it to be.
Do we want to talk about the fact that Cece is literally in Egypt right now, and sent us a picture of her riding a camel in front of the pyramids, and Joe's convinced that she photoshopped it just to get out of the show.
Well, no, I think she went on this trip to get out of the show. I don't think she photoshopped it. You know what? It's heartbreaking. Like she's been posting a lot of these on Instagram, and like the photos are amazing. Like it's her like in front of the pyramids, the Sphinx, and everything. Like I don't know how long she's been on the show now, like 2 or 3 years. Like I've never seen her this happy. Like it just.
Well, she knows that Kyle's an ocean away from you now.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
got him all to herself.
Every photo has this smirk of "he's mine." But yeah, the photos are amazing. Like I can't wait to hear about it.
Strong Instagram follow, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got 2 more from our good friend Rural Bale. That's Roger. Which current A-list star takes the Nick Cage fall from grace? I'm voting for Joaquin Phoenix. Do we think Nick Cage has fallen from grace? Do we think Nick Cage was ever really that high?
Oh, no, he was up there.
He was.
I mean, I guess he was in those National Treasure movies,
the late 90s,
well,
yeah.
He was nominated for Oscars and stuff.
A lot of people have been nominated for Oscars, John.
I do think that he fell from previous heights because honestly...
He's white, John. Eventually, he's going to get...
I just think as he's aged, he got too weird to continue on in those, like, A-list roles he was getting. But I also feel like he's now settled into this interesting space as like a lot of cult filmmakers would love to work with him into their weird projects, and I think he's leaning into that, which I think like to me the Nick Cage story lately 4 or 5 years is pretty positive to me. But
well, he's making if you go look at his IMDb, he's making a lot of movies, Eric, that we're not seeing.
Yeah,
and if you were exposed to the full range of his last 5 years, you might think differently.
I don't think
he's making it.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think he's particularly good at what he does. Like, I think he's got his niche audience.
It's like at least 50. It's at least 50% like cult of personality at this point. I agree. Like, there's moments. There's moments in this movie where you're like, are you an actual actor? For real.
Well, like John said, there's a lot of movies that you aren't seeing that he's making. I've seen a couple of those, and there's reasons you haven't seen them.
Yeah.
Like, he did a sequel to, what was it, like The Bad Lieutenant? Where it's like...
That movie is Port of Call, New Orleans? That movie is
good.
What?
Yes, that movie is. I really
borderline unwatchable. Like,
Isn't it?
I loved it.
It's a Werner Herzog movie.
It's a Herzog film. Yeah.
He is.
That movie is. It's crazy. Like, to be clear, but
would you say it slaps?
It def slaps.
All right, 2 more here. One more from Robel. Thoughts on retiring beer guts and replacing it with Joe's edible of the week?
Oh my lord!
I wouldn't. You know what, Joe?
Are you sampling that many different?
Joe, I don't want to retire beer guts, but I would be open to an addendum each week where you talk about whatever your latest foray is.
I mean, like really, like I only have 2 in the house right now, and those will I'll do it like maybe Saturday night, so it's gonna take me a long time to get through these. But I'll talk next week. I'll do a little rundown of what I got going up there.
Nice.
There's a walking advertisement for the Illinois Tourism Bureau right now. It's just
he's great, guys.
Oh boy.
I love beer, but I wake up the next morning, I feel fine. Like, I've gone for runs the next morning where if I get drunk on beer, like, I've never been able to do that.
And you sleep like a rock.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem is, honestly, like, and I think this is pretty common, but, like, edibles take, like, anywhere from, like, an hour to 2 to kick in. So, like, you pretty much have to plan, like, 2 hours in advance. Otherwise, you're like, all right, I took this at 8. Now, by the time it kicks in, I'm ready for bed. So,
there's a way, Yes.
All right, last but not least, from Horror Fan 4129, what's the stupidest question you've ever been asked at work by a new employee? Today I got asked, are my tattoos real? Tattoos real. I looked at him with a what the fuck face and asked him if he was serious. It was a serious question. I said, yeah, they are, and walked away.
I love that. Like, what were the other
That's
possibilities in his
really,
head?
really dumb.
I mean, I don't know. One, I'm not comfortable answering this, and two, like the job I do, I'm kind of like the person everyone comes to for questions, so I couldn't even like narrow down.
Yeah, I don't know, but that is I don't care if I don't have an answer.
Joe's gonna do another segment.
That's a good excuse to send that in because that was funny.
Yeah. Oh boy. If anyone else has suggestions, feel free to tweet them at us.
I did have a guy once when I was managing a desktop team, who he was kind of like a temp intern type of situation, and after I caught him for sleeping in his car in front of the front door of the building, and I told him not to do that. He said, "Oh, is there a policy against it?"
Dude, everyone knows if you're gonna fall. Everyone knows if you're gonna fall asleep in your car, you drive to like the dusty back corner of the lot where no one's gonna see you, and you do it there.
Exactly, and you don't leave your door open with your head hanging out of the side of your truck seat.
What?
Wait.
So what you're saying
That's it for the tweets.
what you're saying is he was on heroin?
Probably.
Yeah. Andy,
Yes.
bloodygoodhorror.com. It's like a drug. If you go there, you can't
is.
stop. You know. Why don't you tell me what's going on there right now?
Yeah. So new reviews all the time. Check it out. In particular, our good friend Luke has a review of Girl on the Third Floor, starring a wrestler I've never heard of.
Is it CM Punk?
Yes, that guy. Yeah. So that's our latest review. And then Luke will also have a review of Color Out of Space coming up. In particular, though, our dear friend, founding member of the new class, Sophie, she and I are going to be hanging at Panic Fest this weekend in Kansas City, Missouri. And yeah, we're pretty excited about it. Even when I lived like under 3 hours away from her, it took me moving even further away to finally get to this film festival. So pretty excited about it. We're going to be hanging there watching a bunch of horror movies. In particular, we're kind of pumped. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead's new movie is going to be showing there. So we're pretty psyched for that. But if you're around at Panic Fest and you see us, come say hey, and we'll hang out for a little bit.
Very cool. And they did the Endless, those movies.
Yes, Endless and Resolution and Spring. So yeah, this is it sounds really cool. Apparently, it's set in New Orleans and like has like some supernatural stuff with paramedics. So I'm into it.
Very nice.
And lastly, Sophie also wanted me to tell everybody that Tweet with BGH is making a reemergence. She texted me this information, and of course, my phone died. So I can't tell you the date, but I can tell you that they're going to be watching Valentine from 2001. So keep an eye on the social media. We'll make an announcement there.
All right.
I've never even heard of that.
Really? David Boreanaz, Joe? It was like one of those post-Scream slashers. It was probably when you were like in your not watching a lot of horror phase.
Valentine? No. Yeah, never heard.
I've never seen it. I'm just familiar.
Huh. All
right, guys. That's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed our discussion on Color Out of Space. We're not sure what we're going to do next week. We got a couple possibilities. There's this movie, not fully wide theatrical, called The Turning. There's also some Shudder stuff we're looking at. Keep an eye on our socials, at BG Horror on Twitter or Bloody Good Horror on Instagram. Probably the two best places to find that info out. We'll post once we know. If you're curious, of course, if you're in Slack, the info will be there too. Anyway, that's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Farewell.
Goodbye, everybody.
You're muted, Casey.
Bye.